Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Khadija, Associate Professor, Department of Physiology, Bosundara Ade Medical College. Students, we are discussing about at item number 6 of renal physiology. In previous class, we have already discussed about the concept of formation of concentrated urine and dilute urine. Now, today I am going to discuss. In previous class, we have discussed how this is formed, how concentrated urine is formed, and how dilute urine is formed. And now, in this class, we will discuss how concentrated urine is formed and what is the basic mechanism. The basic requirement for formation of concentrated urine is first, the presence of ADH, and the second is renal medullary interstitial hyperosmolarity. From the previous class, you have known that a nephron has different parts, including glomerular capsule, then proximal convolutive tubule, loop of Henle that include descending limb of loop of Henle, ascending limb of loop of Henle, and distal convolutive tubule, collecting tubule, and collecting duct. These are the segments. Yeah, you have already know that nephron or descending limb is permeable to water and less permeable to solutes, and ascending limb is completely impermeable to water, and other segments like distal convolutive tubule, collecting tubule, and collecting duct, these segments are impermeable to water in absence of ADH. So, when high level of ADH is present, in that case water can only reabsorb from that segments. Concentrated concentrated is formed. So, basic requirement, from the basic requirement, it is the first requirement for formation of concentrated urine, that is a high level of ADH. Whenever our body's osmolarity reduces because of less intake of water or less supply of water, that causes osmoreceptor present in the pituitary gland to secrete ADH, and this ADH act on that segments that is distal convolutive tubule, collecting tubule, and collecting duct, and these segments become permeable to water, and water is reabsorbed. Now, the second requirement for formation of concentrated urine is high osmolarity of renal medullary interstitium. High osmolarity means solute concentration is more. That is in the renal medulla interstitium, solute is more solute is present, so interstitial osmolarity is high. So, how it is produced? It is produced by a mechanism that is called countercurrent mechanism. First of all, you should know what is countercurrent mechanism. Countercurrent mechanism, there is a hypothesis, you have to memorize this. It is a small difference of osmotic concentration at any level between the fluid flowing in counter direction in two parallel tubes connected with each other in hairpin manner can be multiplied many times along the length of the time. That means the tube is U-shaped. So, countercurrent mechanism is applied in this case because loop of Henle is also is U-shaped, and the vasa recta, that is peritubular capillary, is also U-shaped. So, countercurrent mechanism have two parts or two component, that is first component is countercurrent multiplier and second is countercurrent exchanger. Multiplier, in this case multiplier is the loop of Henle. Loop of Henle, actually loop of Henle create or generate the medullary interstitial hyperosmolarity, and the exchanger is vasa recta. What is vasa recta? Vasa recta is actually the peritubular capillary. It is found in juxtamedullary nephron. It is U-shape. It is different from other peritubular capillary. It is U-shape and they are parallel to each other, connected, and they parallelly connected, and they act as a exchanger. That means they preserve, and it usually preserve the hyperosmolarity. So, countercurrent multiplier, loop of Henle generate the hyperosmolarity, and exchanger, that is vasa recta, it helps to preserve the hyperosmolarity of renal medulla. We will discuss now the countercurrent multiplier system. Countercurrent multiplier system is a mechanism that expends energy to create concentration gradient. What does it mean? It it need energy to produce hyperosmolarity. We know that normally it has 6 steps. It produces hyperosmolarity, it has 6 steps how it produce hyperosmolarity. If you see the steps, we can see the figure, and there are about 6 steps to produce hyperosmolarity. In first step, assume that there is glomerular filtrate is formed, it is 300 milliosmol, and in the proximal convoluted tubule all the solutes and water, about 65% of solute and water reabsorbed in the same proportion in the proximal convoluted tubule. So, the osmolarity remain the same as plasma. We know the plasma osmolarity is about 300 milliosmol per liter. In the proximal convoluted tubule, it is remain as the same 300 milliosmol per liter because the solute and the water is reabsorbed in the same proportion. In the step number 1, you can see there is a 300 milliosmolarity everywhere in the interstitium, and everywhere is 300 milliosmolarity osmolarity in the interstitium, also the descending limb and ascending limb, because the kidney is not it is fast acting. In the second step, when you see the figure, we can see, we know that in descending limb is permeable to water and ascending limb is impermeable to water, and and ascending limb is only permeable to solutes, and there is some active transporter present in ascending limb. That is important because it generates the middle interstitial hyperosmolarity. First, when the fluid is filtered, it has 300 milliosmolarity. When it descends through the descending limb, it is 300, but when ascend to the ascending limb, there is a transporter, active transporter, which use energy to pump out the solute to the outside. It is sodium potassium and chloride exchanger or active transporter. This causes pump out of solute like sodium, potassium and chloride from the tubule to the interstitium, and it has the ability to generate about 200 milliosmolarity difference inside and outside. So, when it generates interstitial osmolarity 400, but inside 200 milliosmolarity, then what happened? Interstitial fluid become more hyperosmotic because of out of the solute is coming out from the ascending limb. And then we come the third step. When you see the figure in the third step, you can see interstitial fluid osmolarity already increases because of the solute is coming out from the ascending limb and it is trapped in the interstitium, and now the new fluid that is coming from the proximal convoluted tubule to the descending limb, it was 300, but we know this segment is permeable to water, less permeable to solute. So, it tries to make equilibrium with the interstitium. So, water is coming out from the descending limb to make equilibrium with the interstitium. Then it become equal 400 milliosmol per liter. As you see, interstitial osmolarity is already produced above 400 milliosmol by the ascending limb. In this way, the fluid that is passing through the descending limb come to the ascending limb again. In the ascending limb, we know the active transporter is present here. It is continue pumping the solute outside. So, when the 400 milliosmolarity fluid come to the ascending limb, then in step number 5, you can see it pumps more solute to the outside, and continuously more fluid is coming to the ascending limb, it pumping out the more solute in the interstitium. So, it produces 350 milliosmol in the 500 milliosmolarity in the outside and 300 milliosmolarity inside. So, there is, you can see that everywhere there is a inside and outside there is 200 milliosmolarity concentration difference. Why it is produced? And because this segment has the ability to create 200 milliosmolarity difference inside and outside, because if more solute then 200 milliosmolarity more solute enter into the interstitium, it come back to the tubule, renal tubule again by the leak channel to the renal tubule. So, it is maintained. It is always maintained that inside and outside concentration is always 200 milliosmolarity difference. So, when we come see the step number 6, in step number 6 you can see that new fluid is coming that is containing 300 millismolarity is descending through the descending limb, but interstitial osmolarity is already increasing by the ascending limb like 350, 500 and this. So, water is from the descending limb, as it is permeable to water, what is continuously pumping out from the descending limb to make equilibrium to the inside and outside. In this way, when fluid is descend through the descending limb to the top, it becomes the same with the interstitium. In this and when it go to the upwards the ascending limb, the pump is always active, and in this way is pumping out the more solid to the interstitium. In this way, these steps are continuously repeating again and again. So, in this way interstitial osmolarity is continuously increasing up to serially from upwards to top to bottom. It is increasing from as 300 milliosmolarity upwards, then 700, then 1000, then 1200. In this way, it is gradually increasing from upwards to down, from up to downwards, top to bottom. So, you can see the if you see the loop Henle and the interstitial osmolarity, you can see that the osmotic difference ascending descending limb and the interstitium is the same osmolarity, but an ascending limb has the 200 milliosmolarity difference with the interstitium. In this way, inner medial become hyperosmotic. At the top, it is 1200 milliosmol per liter. So, in this way, the solid is trapped in the interstitium. Now, we will discuss another topics, that is urea. Urea is another solute, that is the metabolic waste product that is produced by the protein. It contributes to hyperosmotic renal medullary interstitium and formation of concentrated urine. It has a role in formation of 40 to 50%. It produces 40 to 50% osmolarity of the renal medullary interstitium when kidney forms concentrated urine. Normally, when ADH level is high, then the descending inner medullary portion of the descending limb collecting duct become permeable to ADH. Permeable to urea, so urea is passively reabsorbed with water. From the figure you can see urea impermeable segments. Urea is permeable in impermeable segment is, you can see the figure that the deep portion, deep green portion, it indicates the urea impermeable segments. Urea is not permeable to this segment, that is as a thick ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, collecting tubule and outer collecting medullary collecting duct. This portion is impermeable to urea. So, how urea play a role in formation of hyperosmotic medullary interstitium? You can see when you see the figure, urea is in proximal convoluted tubule, urea is small portion of urea is reabsorbed. Then in the descending limb, it is not reabsorbed, and the lip of Henle, it is less permeable, urea is secreted here, and ascending limb, you can see ascending the thick portion and ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct, these are the urea impermeable segments. So, water in these segments, urea is not reabsorbed, but water in presence of ADH, water is reabsorbed. So, in that when the fluid tubular fluid become to the inner medullary collecting duct in presence of ADH, it become more concentrated because water is reabsorbing, but urea is not reabsorbing. In the medial inner medullary collecting duct, the concentration of urea become more. So, in this portion, urea is passively reabsorbed and come to the interstitium, and from here some of urea secretion occurs, urea secreted in the loop of the Henle, and then again this circulate to the ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, collecting duct, and then again reabsorb. In this way, urea is recycling. So, only 20% of urea excreted through the urine. So, it has a role in building interstitial hyperosmolarity. Now, so these are all about the how renal medullary interstitial hyperosmolarity is generated. So, we have to remember 4 factors. These are the you should remember these 4 factors for formation of renal medullary hyperosmolarity. These are number 1, active transport of sodium ion and co-transport of potassium chloride and other ions out of the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle into the medullary interstitium. This is the first, because active transporter is present in the ascending limb. This is the active transporter that pump out solid from interstitium from renal tubule to the interstitium. This is the first factor. Then the number 2, active transport of ions from the collecting duct into the renal medulla. This is the second. And then third number is the facilitated diffusion of urea from the inner medullary collecting duct into the renal medulla interstitium. This is the third number that contribute for formation of renal medullary interstitial hyperosmolarity. Then the number 4, diffusion of only a small amount of water from the medullary tubule into the medullary interstitium, far less than the reabsorption of solute into the medullary interstitium. That is, water is less reabsorbed but solute is more. So more solute is present in the interstitium. So renal medullary interstitium become hyperosmotic. So you have to memorize all these 4 factors for the exam and also for the auditory viva. Now we will discuss this how this renal medullary interstitial hyperosmolarity is preserved, because it is already produced. It should be preserved. And how it is preserved? It is preserved by vasa recta. We have already mentioned the topic. This vasa recta acts as an exchanger. We know what is vasa recta. Vasa recta is a peritubular capillary. You know the capillary it is permeable to both solutes and water. So it is a U shape. So when vasa recta, it has 2 limbs also, descending limb and ascending limb. So when blood passes come to the descending limb, it is 300, we know the blood osmolarity is 300 millosmolarity, but when it descends through the renal medullary interstitium, we know the osmolarity is already generated by the renal tubule. It is there is a osmotic gradient that is produced from upwards to downwards, that is the 300, 600, 800, 1000 and 1200. These are the gradually increasing hyperosmolarity of the renal medulla. It should be maintained. When the blood is coming through the descending limb of the vasa recta, the osmolarity gradually increases from upwards to downwards. Vasa recta has 2 limbs, descending and ascending limb. When blood come through the descending limb, as you have know already, the osmolarity increases from upwards to downwards in the interstitium 600, 1000, at 800, 1000 and 12,000, 1200. These are the osmolarity. And the descending limb blood is 300, but there is osmolarity high in the interstitium. So when descends, it tries to make equilibrium with the surrounding. So to make equilibrium, what happened? To make equilibrium, the osmolarity should be rise. How osmolarity rises? For rising of the osmolarity, solid should enter into the vessel and water should come out. So same. So this time in this case, solid is coming inside of the vessel capillary and water is coming out in the descending limb to make equilibrium with the interstitium. In this way, it become equilibrium at the top, 1200 milliosmolarity, and then when it ascends, then the osmolarity is gradually decreases in surrounding. So it have to make equilibrium with the surrounding. To make equilibrium with the surrounding, what happen? It should escape the solid out. Solid should be out from the limb to the outside and water should enter. In this way, solid is again coming out from the vessel to the interstitium and water is entering into the interstitium to make equilibrium. So at the end, we see the vasa recta that is carrying the blood has the same osmolarity as the previous, that is about 350 or 300. In this way, the osmolarity of the blood is preserved and the interstitial hyperosmolarity is also preserved, because it does not carry out the solute from the interstitium, but it just exchange the solutes in when it descends and in solid out from the when it ascends, but it carry the water with it. So in this way vasodilator acts as exchanger, but it does not create the interstitial hyperosmolality. You should remember this thing. So, at last you should I want to say that how medullary interstitial hyperosmolality is produced. You should answer that current multiplier and contribution of urea recycler. This is at the in this way medullary interstitial hyperosmolality is produced. And how medullary interstitial hyperosmolality is maintained? What is the answer? That is current exchanger. And another thing I have not mentioned, that is less blood supply of the renal medulla. You know, renal medulla has less blood supply than cortex. So, less blood supply here, so less flow of blood, so it does not wash out the solute with it, carry out the solute to the out. So, it is one thing you should remember, that is less blood supply in the renal medulla is another factor for maintaining renal medulla hyperosmolality. So, students, that is all of my lecture. I think you understand all the topics. If there is any problem you do not understand or anything, please try to communicate with me. I will try my best to answer the questions. Thank you.